everybody, and welcome back to the Weird Science Absolute Comics DC Thingamajigers. We have a pretty cool lineup this week, but what is really cool is my man Gray. What up, Gray?
What up, Jim? Flipping out, you came in hot then, mamma mia.
Hey, what's going on? I will mention right off the bat that when we do record this, we first off record it live on YouTube at 7:15. Give or take a couple minutes because I was making a hamburger at a weird time. But the idea of going on the YouTube and having some live chat and the people in the chat, we will, be around after the actual review and we'll talk about some things and, answer questions, super chats, all that, if that is the things that go on. And I do want to say that a bunch of people are already commenting that it was a pretty cool week with these Absolute books. You end up having Absolute Martian Manhunter #1. And the Absolute Wonder Woman #6. But I do agree 100% with Joseph Wolf, who says there is, and I say, a severe lack of children being punted by Batman in this week's books, something that I swear to God, it took me to like a day ago to stop laughing about. I just kept thinking of that deal. I did end up making that song, and I put the song up, sent it to Scott Snyder, and crickets were heard throughout. Not any mention. He did not even give me a thumbs up or down. Dear. And I was
How
mad.
dare you?
I was mad at him. But here we are, and we end up having, like I said, these two books. And Absolute Wonder Woman, it's a crazy deal. Absolute Wonder Woman, when it first came out, I liked it. Me and Eric were doing the show then, and we both liked it. And I got in a bunch of arguments about the idea of, hey, I like it. Oh, I don't like it. It's not really Wonder Woman. It doesn't feel like Wonder Woman. I think that the Martian Manhunter book is going to benefit from that book, and even maybe the Superman, but all of them, even the idea that, okay, we get it now. It is an Elseworlds. It's a different play. People forget that the idea of the Omega energy from Darkseid has changed things, makes things a little more grittier, darker, whatever. But I do think that the Martian Manhunter, if this would have come out like first book, I think people would have really been perplexed, because I'll tell you right now, I'm really perplexed right now with everything going on with this Martian Manhunter. Here's the thing too. I end up defending Gabe on the Comic Book Roundup this week because of his review, but people kind of got the idea that I liked Gabe, and I really didn't want that idea to be out there. It's one of the things I try to avoid. And actually, I didn't defend Gabe's review. I actually defended his, which is weird to say, his right to review. You know what I mean? It's a really odd play with that. And so when we get to the deal, we'll talk about these reviews, because if people had looked, at one point there was like 10 reviews. Gabe was the only one who didn't give it a 10. And that's stretching things.
Jim, just to interrupt for a sec, your audio's low for some reason on YouTube.
I did put it up a little.
You sound really loud on Zencaster.
I did put it up a little. I actually put it down because I usually end up screaming over you.
Just checking with Fear Monic. He's like, Gray sounds loud or Jim sounds quiet.
Yeah, I think that everybody just is saying that you're a big loudmouth, is what I think they're saying. Is that what they're saying? I did change it, so I should actually be a little bit better, but we'll see how that is. Check 1 2. Hello, love. That's what I do. That's the mic check. But we're going to jump into these. And just as an aside, how are things in Japan, Gray, so we can get these levels right?
Things are good in Japan, yeah. I'm turning into Jim this morning, folks, because I got up had about an hour before we were going live, so plenty of time making the coffee. Before I knew it, it's like 8:15. So, oh my God, what's going on?
Like, oh my God, that's like me. I say, okay, I'm making coffee, and then I set up the room. And it's like 25 minutes later, and you always like, where are you making this coffee? What, are you going to Colombia to gather the beans?
Maybe I am. Fuji, yeah, to pick the beans, for goodness sake.
I'm telling you, I didn't know the time, so I was kind of reading these again, and I'm like, I haven't eaten dinner. I better eat dinner, or else I'm going to get high. So I start making a hamburger, and then I look, I'm like, oh crap, I got like 3 minutes before I have to get on with Gray. I better make this hamburger quick. But yeah, here we are, and we have these two books, and as we did last week, we will start with Wonder Woman. We started with Batman, I believe, last time, and it's kind of one of those to kind of gauge how much time we have, because Martian Manhunter being the big one, want to spend a little more time with it, though. I don't know what we're going to talk about in that book, but Absolute Wonder Woman.
I can't wait to hear what Jim's going to say about Martian Manhunter. Just got to say that, folks.
Well, right away, though, I'll give everybody a little spoiler here. For a fact that it's not my type of book. Like right away when you read it, it has a lot of things that aren't really my cup of tea. But we'll see. We'll
Oh,
see.
cup of tea, love. Oh.
Maybe I'll surprise you. I will. We have the absolute Wonder Woman #6, The Lady or the Tiger, Part 1 of 2. Now, it is a fill-in artist, Mateo de Luis, who is only going to be these 2 issues. And when I was talking to my man Rocky, I think it was on one of our Patreon spotlights, he did say, "Oh my God, did you see the next Wonder Woman, Absolute Wonder Woman?" I said, "No," and he's like, "Oh, the art's incredible, and I think it's going to cause a lot of problems." I'm like, "What do you mean a lot of problems?" He's like, "I don't think people are going to want to go back to Hayden Sherman, though I'd like to hear what people say in the chat, that the idea of this is a lot of people are saying that they are getting used to, Hayden Sherman's art. So when you change things, even though you might not have loved it at first, it is the art that you think of for the book. So it kind of does a weird mumbo jumbo in your head that you end up not liking it as much. But boy, it is really, really good. This art is really good. I like it. I'm telling you, when we get into this, it almost feels like at some points looks a bit Alex Ross-esque on some of the things. It makes it look epic in a story that is pretty epic. But it's written by Kelly Thompson with art by Mateo de Luis. As I said, I'm pronouncing that completely wrong, I'm sure. Letters by Becca Carey. And you do have, cover by Hayden Sherman, things like that. So if you want your Hayden Sherman, you still get it there. But when we jump into this, again, you're going to have to, go with the pacing. If you are reading this book, most of these books, except Batman kicking babies into the ocean, they have a weird pacing. A lot of things, you'll have an issue where it'll just be flashbacks. You'll have an issue that it's just Krypton, and the Superman and even the Flash had a really subtle start. So when you get into this, it is giving you a background of some of the weapons and things that Wonder Woman has gotten, but it also gives you kind of the big picture of the gods, how things are going. And I'll point out Sus Gabe here, because Sus Gabe, in his review of this, said he didn't like the dialogue. He didn't like the dialogue at all. He said it was very forced and wooden and things like that. I think that what he's not getting, though, is that it is a myth type thing, and she's talking to Hades. This isn't like she's hanging out with Gray, in the downtown Japan, somewhere there, Osaka, I don't know.
Karaoke snack
Yeah,
bar,
I'm going to make up weird names of, I should say Tokyo. I'm an idiot, but, you're not just sitting there saying like, "Yo, what up, bro? Like, what's happening there, Hades? What's the deal?" You are presenting this as she has been called to Hades, it seems, to explain herself and to explain things, because she has escaped hell. And you kind of didn't really even think, I didn't think of the idea that she's in hell. I didn't even cross my mind of, oh, Hades might be pissed at some things. He might be upset. But you continue doing the idea of, Wonder Woman making hell better, which is also something that Hades might not be that hip with, right? I mean, it's his deal, but do you like the art's great, right? We already said that. I do also like, though, the character deal of Hades, the visual of Hades, and it kind of reminds me a little, for just that little bit, it reminds me of, say, the Brian Azzarello run with, I think, was it Cliff Chiang, in that, where there were some really unique, things of the gods, the art of the gods.
It is. It's a weird character design, isn't it, Jim? Is he like, is that kind of blue, light blue flames or something like that?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Or even when you look, it could even be, you could say flames, or you could even say ice at some point, because it kind of change a mist. But I like when that crown is on him there, and you have that colors kind of pop on that. But when she gets there, he says, "Oh, you idiots who bring her in, you didn't disarm her." And they're like, "Oh, sorry, boss. She doesn't have any weapons." And he's like, "For crying out loud, everything on her's a weapon. Like, what are you talking about?
She's a living weapon."
Yeah, and says, strip down, which I'm like, now things are getting sexy in here. And when she does that, you get the play where Diana, she is being a little underhanded right away. The idea that she's thinking she's sneaking this, scabbard, this whole play, pretty much the Leopold's tiny, bag of holding here, where she has all those weapons. And so he says, no, I can, I can sense that. I can see that you have this invisible deal. Let's get this out. And even says, and kind of makes a joke, that it's so obvious that it should have cartoon deal around it, stink lines, which is kind of a funny thing for Hades to say. But he says, get those out as well. And then he asks about it. And he says, my statement stands. Just what every growing girl needs, I see. Bring me the red lasso, when he wants to see what's going on, and asks, how do you do this? At one point, though, she says, I wouldn't touch that. And Hades, you see, is a moron like me. If there's anything that you have, I told one of the stories was straight up where I was working with Eric and we had this machine that it was cherry red. It was so hot. And I just say to Eric, like, you think I could touch that and like not get burnt? He's like, no, you gotta. And I had to do it. I burnt myself.
You were those
I
people,
was an
Jim, that
idiot.
would like touch
Yeah.
the button, press the button that says, "Whatever you do,
Oh yeah.
don't push
Yeah.
this button." You're
And
like,
if
"Oh,
you
go
present
on,
anything,
just try it."
even my family says the weirdest thing for me to ever say, but it works on me is, "Oh my God, this tastes like crap. You got to taste it." Like, "Oh my God, this is the worst thing I ever taste. Here, have a bite." And I'll always want to see it. I'm like, "Oh, let me see that." And but that's what Hades seems to be, or seems to think she's lying. And he kind of
By the way,
gradually
just let me
gets
ask
that.
Jim. You see here three. Is it lassos or
Yeah,
lassos? I've
yeah.
always said lassos for years. By the way, folks,
Lasso.
I'm British. Three different ones here. You got the red, the blue, and the green.
Yep.
What do the other ones do? I wonder.
We're gonna find out, and it actually reminds me of the stuff with Trinity in the
Yeah.
regular deal that she has the three lessons, though we haven't really seen much of those either. And boy, let me tell you, this is easily my favorite Wonder Woman book of the week. I just wanted to throw that out to give it a little Tom King shade because boy, oh boy, nonsense. And I'll be talking about that with Jared when we're done.
No
But
comparison, Jim. Is
no,
it? And I haven't
no.
even read it. I just know. I know how bad that
Yep,
book is
yeah.
without reading it.
And so she ends up where she then has to tell the stories of, how did you get this Nemesis lasso? He wants to know. Tell me how you got the Nemesis lasso. And it's again, this isn't really pushing the overall, which we don't really have an overall story yet. That's one of the
No, we
problems
don't.
with a lot
Yeah.
of these books so far is, if you actually held me down and said, what is the overall story? Obviously, stopping the tetracide was the story, but that's not an overall story. That was there to show us, okay, this is Wonder Woman. Here's some powers. We get some of the side characters and the supporting cast. But what is the overall story? And we have to get that to eventually. But I don't mind this because one of the things that a lot of people were saying right away were, well, what are these weapons? How'd she get them? What's going on? And like I said, I think there's a little more going on here than just, meets the eye kind of deal. I'm not saying it's Transformers. I'm just saying it's more than meets the eye. But you end up where she says, oh, I had to go to Prometheus. And it's really cool. And I like the way that the progression of the art goes. You get to see the tats there. She's with the ink on that magic arm. But she goes and climbs up the mountain. I even like the idea is when you're chained to a mountain for so long, you kind of then call the mountain that. And it's Prometheus Mountain, that she's on Mount Prometheus. And she goes, and it looks epic. And again, this is where I said, like, that kind of looks not quite as detailed, whatnot, but for interior art, that looks a lot like an Alex Ross. It looks a lot like really, really good art.
It does.
looks
It's like properly
epic.
painted, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fully painted art.
And what gets me is the light, the shading on her as she's there and the light's kind of going on, but Prometheus being on and chained to the mountain, he ends up having no light on him. And he looks sad. He does. But
Poor Prometheus.
I mean, look
Yeah.
at this guy. And
It's like all the fire's gone out of him, Jim.
Yeah, oh my goodness, that's a good one. I like the idea though too, like you spell out even later the idea of the birds and the things and like, please just don't eat his gizzards here. Don't eat his innards. Leave him alone. She's trying to help and she's trying to make a deal as well. But she even stresses, what deal can she make? She's just Wonder Woman. She's just there. She's not, she's not big enough to say, hey, Zeus, stop this shenanigans and nonsense. She's able to free him for a little. And she wants, a favor. She's going to give him a favor of him getting a stretch a little bit. But in the meantime, wants a favor and also says to these, birds, hey, don't pick at him. Hey, eagles, don't go at him. Tell your sisters. And then gives them some water, all this stuff where she then wants blood. She needs his blood. And it's, it's witch stuff, but it's also pretty cool. Again, this is very much like, again, you put a lot of the craziness of, hey, let's start a new arc or whatever to kind of subtly go and do some of these other things going on. But I like it. But you go from there because, again, it's very epic. It's very mythological. It's very the deal. But in the end, you only do a couple things, right? You end up, getting these magical enchantments and things on her weapons.
I love it when she's got her like her battle axe, and when she chops the chains. It's a great scene. It's almost like Thor, isn't it, from
Yeah.
the movies
Do you
there,
call
struck
your
by
wife the old
lightning.
battle axe? Is that
Yeah,
something
no,
you
that's you, isn't it?
would she actually, if you did that, being it, would she know what you meant? If you, do you
No,
think
she
she'd get
wouldn't.
that
No, bless
reference?
her.
Yeah, thank God.
No.
You'd have to just say, it means something good, baby. But you
But I
keep
think she'd
going.
get it like just by looking at my
Well,
eyes,
that'd
or
be
the
funny.
the tone of my voice. She'd be
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." Anyway, yeah. As you were saying, Jim, this is cool because we get a lot of the backstory here. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no progression of the main story, but it's building up her character, building up her
Hmm.
past. How did she get these different weapons? Where did they come from? I love it, and it's even made me want to go and start rereading the old myths, like
Hmm.
the Greek myths or the Roman,
Yeah, that's why I
Roman
like
myths.
it, and
So
that's why I said when Gabe was talking about the dialogue, I think that it's purposely, epic. It's purposely supposed to be
yeah, like the
like
way
a
she's
myth.
talking to Prometheus and to Hades, she's using this really respectful language the whole
That's what,
time.
yeah.
It is.
I
It's
mean,
like it's straight out of one of those old classic
seriously,
stories.
she's talking to gods. You know what I mean? This would
Yes.
be how I would talk if I met Paul McCartney. That would be the deal. I would be like, "Yo, what up, bro?" But you keep going because then we actually get Pegasus, which is pretty cool. And some of these things, again, for this early in the series, issue number 6, there are some like weird, like I would say callbacks. But it's funny that it's so quick to get to it that it's kind of cool to see though. Still,
He's like, Diana, look, my last gift to you. Rise, great one. And then from the rocks, we see this fire, this burning. Then it appears to be a leg. A leg comes out, and then Jim, everyone's favorite, the skeletal Pegasus, is born. Well, basically to live again.
yeah, yeah. And the thing I liked about that is, remember when we did see Pegasus, when Diana said, "Listen, if you die, die. If he dies, he dies," as Drago said. The idea was, she said, if you die, Zeus isn't going to bring you
If he
back.
dies,
If he
he
dies, he
dies.
dies. I will break you. You end up where Pegasus, she said, if you die, Zeus ain't bringing you back. And at that point, I thought, oh, Zeus must have brought him back the last time and just doesn't want to have any. No, it's because Zeus doesn't want him back. This is something. And again, in this, it's kind of a funny play, even with Hades as well. But with Prometheus, it is that play of, hey, as long as we piss off Zeus, I'm in. Like, Prometheus is like, I'll do whatever to piss that guy off. Like, here's Pegasus. Oh, Zeus is going, screw Zeus and whatnot. But again, she even mentions the idea in this, one of the bigger things. And again, in a subtle way, she says that Zeus is kind of mad at me and doesn't want me to live, because we wondered who were the gods who actually sent her to Hades with Circe, with the idea in my mind of saying, let Circe take care of the baby, because Circe ain't taking care of the baby. There's going to be problems. And that seems to be Zeus. That seems to be the big cheese there, because she says he's pretty pissed off that I'm still alive. And I think this is the first step towards then maybe saving the Amazons, starting all that going on. And I think that's really cool. And the idea of Pegasus with that. But then we go back to Hades, and Hades, it is funny the way that you go by the art, because at first Hades seemed to be like, whatever, what's your story there?
Oh, the arrogance of youth.
Right? And then all of a sudden now he's standing up and he's like walking toward, like he seems very intrigued. Like he's like, ooh, like that's pretty cool. Well, what about this lasso, this nemesis you called? Like, what is the deal with that? Is there something in it, something dark and venomous? I can't quite, it's like me trying to figure out what's in like a stew. I'm like, what the hell is this extra
some spicy
ingredient you
Korean
have in,
ramen.
right? Okay, and they're like, my secret ingredient is salt. I'm like, there it is. It was salt all along.
There you go.
But yeah, you
Works
end up where
every time.
she says something dark and venomous, and she's like, yeah, basilisk. It was that.
Basilisk.
And that's where he's like, you killed the last basilisk? She's like, yep. That's funny. Like, even her deal, and if you look, it does get a little bit like she starts getting a little more sassy now. He even says at the end, like, ooh, you're not with your jokes. Because at the one point, it seemed like she'd say, oh, yes, it was indeed. But she's like, yeah, it was me. And he's like, what is a trophy? This seems a bit savage for you, all your talk of justice. And she's like, no. I didn't do it for trophies.
I do not kill for trophies.
Yeah,
the
and
basilisk's soul was soaked in the blood of the innocent.
Yeah.
And he's like, yes, well, aren't we all? Ooh, look at that. Look at that from Hades.
Look at him. He's there. I'm waiting for him to go, suck it. And then you end up where she says Zeus, and it kind of almost feels like a trial type thing, even like a Hercules thing, where she says that Zeus tasked me, and he says, she says, but that is not why I killed it. Zeus, apparently angry that I was still alive, had tasked me with killing him. So you get that play with Zeus of saying, like, anybody hear I didn't hear this Diana dying, like this baby I sent away. And they're like, no, no, Cersei's a really good mother. He's like, oh, crap. Like, why did I pick her? I'm going to send her to kill the basilisk, so she'll die then. But this is the play of this.
It's
And
even
again,
worse though, Jim. Is like Zeus had been sending the basilisk to try and kill Wonder Woman on the island, hadn't
yeah,
it? So
yeah.
that's why she's like, no, I had to come and take it out because
Yep.
it kept coming after me.
And so that's correct. Zeus really wants her dead. And again,
He's a
with
bit
that
sus,
play,
isn't he?
yeah, he
He's
is.
almost as sus as Gabe.
No, no, not that sus. That's real sus. I think that I like the play where he sent her to Cersei and how pretty much in my mind thinking that there would be no help for her. Like Cersei is so self-centered. She's not good. She's not going to end up taking care of the baby. But lo and behold, not
She'd
only
ignore
that,
the baby.
yeah,
He'll
she'd
probably
ignore
just
it.
die.
And so if you go in with that, you are not going to think the idea that Cersei has taught her all her magic as well. But the reason why it happened was because Diana was good. Diana was so good that, made hell a finer place to be and actually taught Cersei how it was great to be good and
She
actually
won her
loved
over, Jim, with
she
love.
Became her,
Love
and
will save the
she
day.
became her
There you
mother.
go.
So the
Yeah,
idea
she
that he
did.
sends the basilisk, I'm thinking that Zeus still isn't very aware that not only is she alive, but Cersei has trained her, and a witch, half witch, half Amazon, might be equal to a basilisk, and shows that she was smart and was taught to, go blind. And then even with the smell, which I wish I could do, but though I don't have a great sense of taste, hence all the things that I like in life. But you end up where, again, she's telling the story, but also then you see that why she was able to do it too. And you have this, this crazy axe where you do have Prometheus in his blood was the thing that was able to even enchant it. So when she goes after the basilisk, she's smart enough. Like, she's learned. Again, I think that Zeus would think, like, that woman, she's like a homeschooled person in hell. She ain't going to know what the basilisk is. But this is something Cersei would have taught her. So I think it's like a really cool play of the idea of what happened and how she evolved in hell when she wasn't supposed to. They sent her there to die. And not only did she didn't die, but she actually was more prepared for what happened later. So I thought that was a really, really cool play, the way that they played it out. And then it looks great. The basilisk looks great. Poor basilisk,
awesome.
we hardly knew you.
Look at that one panel with the eye, and
she's
she's talking about it, like with the basilisk, if you get a look from it, it's a bit like Medusa, it's lethal, it will kill you.
Mhm.
So what does she do? It must be with magic. She blinds herself before she goes to face it.
Yeah. And then, like,
Fantastic.
I don't want to know what she's saying because it could go like maybe a Harley Quinn fartacular. The idea that she's like, it also is sensitive to certain smells.
Is that what she's got in that little smoke bomb or stink
I'm
bomb?
telling you, I'm like, maybe, it's a little fartacular going on. And then she's like, I was able to be funny. And if Hades is like, oh, did you use the magic to stop your sense of smell? She's like, no. You see a clothespin on her nose. She's like, I want old fashioned. But yeah, she ends up distracting it. She can't see it, but she can still smell and hear it. And she goes and chops off his head, which is huge and looks great. And so you end up having that venom. And then even Hades, which might be a little, little reconnaissance type deal. And he's like, so you like took care of all the stuff with that old basilisk, right? And she's like, yeah, witches don't waste anything. And so that's what it was. And then the weird play of it, though, is he says, yeah, that's all fine and good, but I don't believe you, bitch. I don't think you're telling the truth. And she's like, what? What do you mean? What's going on? And then he says, well, maybe whatever, but it doesn't matter because all your sass is gone because, look, I have your mom. And you end up like, it's a weird ending to have all the things, and then you end up having Hades say, yeah, I don't think that's true. And in my mind, I never got the idea that it wasn't. It wasn't something where you have that juxtaposition of like a Harley Quinn saying, oh, I had a great childhood, and then you see the artist showing how bad it is. We just see what she's saying and she's doing it, and it seems she's very capable of doing it, but Hades doesn't agree that was the deal. But in fact, it looks like he was just kind of getting her there to maybe find out about the weapons, maybe to find out what he could do against her and what would be the best way to if you
what
came
do you
to
think
attack
he wants,
me.
though?
Maybe, I think that he's really pissed
that's not
that
clear.
she escaped,
I don't get
right?
it. Yeah, I guess so.
And maybe
like, why does he get her mother at the end?
Maybe Zeus is like, hey, if you kill her, I'll give you, whatever. I don't know. God coins. I don't know what you give to Olympian gods. Usually it's very sus what they want. But the idea of maybe he knows how powerful she is with this. He wants to know
Yeah.
what, and now he's going to send her on a quest. I mean, this would be more of the idea, hey, you got to go do this, you got to go kill that person, you got to
You
do
gotta
that.
go take out
Unless,
Zeus.
yeah, and that's what it seems like everybody wants. I think it's a smart play, though. Again, if you came to, you came to me and I wanted to maybe get rid of you or whatever, one of the best plays would be for me to force you to tell me stories about these weapons you have so I know what I'm going against. Now, he
Yeah.
hasn't learned everything, but the idea of this whole play, but I do think it might be because he says, at last, no more smart remarks from that too sharp tongue. At one point, he even says, like, yeah, you're a lot like your mom, and I don't like it. Like, she's got the sass too. But he ends up saying, we all have weaknesses, Princess. Yours was quite easy to pinpoint. And it is. Maybe like I said, maybe yes. Most of the gods want you to do something in
Oh yeah,
return of
without a
stuff. And
doubt.
you
It's
even
clever
had
as well,
that.
isn't it, Jim? That like he's basically got Wonder Woman to not to tell her everything she can do, but to talk about some of her strongest skills. The
Yeah.
powers that
Yeah.
she holds. So
Yeah.
it's like okay, he's sussing her out
Yeah.
basically.
And Joseph Wolf said it almost seems like Wonder Woman cannot tell a lie. He's the old George Washington.
Oh yeah,
Shit.
yeah, that's a good
I
point.
think that the other play though is I think that she's young, and I was going to say she needed the money, but I don't think that's the case. She's young, and I think she's a little brash. And when he started getting impressed, she really started going with it. Like, oh man, like this is cool. Like I'm impressing him, and I'm going to give him,
Tell me more,
something.
Wonder Woman.
That's
Tell
why I
me
like
everything.
when he says, "Yeah, yeah, you're not so sassy now." Now that, and it's funny because that whole time he knew what he had. He had that card up his sleeve that he was going to reveal, and just let her go, 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 so it can kind of be thrown in her face at the end. So I think that some of it might be, that she doesn't lie, but also I do think that she
Mm.
was also getting a little high on herself when she started talking about this. I do think that most of that is true, though, but it also may be that Cersei helped her a little more. Maybe she's not telling the entire story, but I think most of it was true. But yeah, we'll have to see. But I think it's pretty cool and intriguing. This is a 2-issue arc. So obviously, next issue is going to be what it says the arena. Again, that kind of could be the idea, hey, you got to fight in my place because I wronged this, but who knows, because it's the gods. But that would be pretty cool if we had an issue where it's just like Gladiator and she's just going to town. But I think that that's why he wanted to know what her weapons were, how they were enchanted, and things like that. But we shall see. And then there's a backup. There's a little Diana backup by Dustin Le Guin and Kelly Thompson, which is fine. It's that whole like the Tiny Titan stuff and things. And I always get a kick out of these. I wish that the bunch of panels. I don't know that Wonder Woman, little Diana, is drawn as cute as can be. She looks a little ragged there, right? I mean, Cersei can do a lot, but obviously hair cutting
I
is
like
not
it though.
one
I
of her
like
thing. I like it
the
too.
big like contrast between what we just had with the art in the main story, and then you got this really cutesy little pencil crane style.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. It's
And
nice.
and I like the play too was that you end up having 2 separate stories here. It's kind of weird, but you end
Yeah,
up where
one-page stories.
yeah, and you end up the first one is that Cersei is really trying to help. Like, Diana, you're my daughter here in hell. I'm going to teach you this. I'm going to go. These are real important magics. And Diana is able to do the deal and transmogrification and ends up where there's, a thing that
Say that again, Jim.
transmogrification. There's like a dragon that turns into a phoenix type deal. And she's like, oh my God, this is so great. And runs off to turn everything. And
Cersei's like, Diana,
like,
that's not the spirit we discussed.
Yeah. And again, it's that Cersei's serious and a little bad to the bone, and Diana just loves things and thinks things are cute and is very hot. But again, it's that progression that ends up happening. That ends up, and she's like, now that he's happy, maybe he won't be so naughty, and ends up chasing the thing around. And she's like, oh well, sigh. And then you get where her demon friends that you ended up seeing that were sent to kill her, but they all started sleeping with her, became basically plushies. They got eaten by this crazy, what looks like a heartworm or something. I saw this commercial for like dog collars, the heartworm thing or whatever. Scared the crap out of me. I was like, holy crap. The special effects in this thing scared me more than anything that I saw in the 80s or 90s. I'm like, this is horrible. But she goes and beats this thing up so that it spits out all of the cute little monsters. And then they run off and she's scolding them. You got to be more careful, little guys. And then that's it. But I liked it. I liked it overall. I'm not going to say that it is a a thing that's going to blow your mind that you're going to talk about for years or whatnot, but I still think it gets the charm, it gets Diana, and that's what most of these books are kind of about, or about the main character. The story ends up being a little bit secondary. As I said before, it kind of reminds
Yeah.
me of the manga kind of concept. If you like the characters, you'll stick with them through the stories. Now, I say that realizing in the back of my head that I'm going to start yelling about the next book, which is kind of the same thing,
No,
but we
you
shall see.
yelling.
We shall see. But what would you? And I did see Brandon C said the backup story looks so bad. He didn't read it. It's just the Dustin Le Guin stuff. It's that
Yeah,
little.
it's
There's
only a page
there's
each,
a
two
lot
little
of different
pages.
things like that. I'll tell you, if you had kids, or somebody who is a little younger and haven't read, the Tiny Titans stuff is really good because it sticks with like a continuity and origin, but makes it fun for kids in different situations. Like I remember the one deal, Deathstroke was like the gym teacher, but you still got a lot of Deathstroke background that was legit. So the little kids, it kind of sneaks in the information and stuff. I thought those are really good. But with all of that, what would you give this?
For a score, just thinking it's a very strong issue. For a score, quickly 8 out of 10. But Jim, I wanted to ask you, with the fantastic art by, is it Mattia De Lulis?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
do you think when Hayden Sherman comes back on in in 2
That's what I
issues?
said. I
How's
think
that
people
going
are
to
going to
go
be
down? I've
thrown
seen that
off.
people like talking about that, in the
I
reviews and
feel
things.
bad for Hayden Sherman because you have this, and it's just a different art style.
Yeah,
And
it's
they
completely different
obviously,
style.
they picked Hayden Sherman to do it, but boy, it's like, it's like Wally Pipp and Lou Gehrig. And I know you being from both Japan and Manchester, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But
You are.
it does feel like the idea of, yeah, maybe this is too good an art to go back, but we'll see. I said some of the people who I talked to on our Patreon Slack, they actually were thrown off and said they wanted the Hayden Sherman art back, not because it looks better, but because it's what they're used to for the book. That's the thing they have in their head for the book.
Yeah,
And with
that's
this
kind of
being,
the
it is kind of a certain type of tease here. When you have this going on, and then you end up having to go back. By the way, I have a song based on that type of tease over at the Sus Records if you want to end up listening to that. But we'll go to the next
Ooh.
book. This one is the minute that it was announced, the minute that you
Jim, how
ended
about
up
you
having,
for a score?
oh, mine's an 8.
Give your score.
I'm an 8 out of 10 as well. I could even go
Okay.
to an 8.5. Screw it.
Ooh.
I'm going 8.5. I just
People in
want
the
to be,
chat have been saying, "Who is this weird science Jim?"
I
who's
want to
gone
be
all
more
positive these
positive with the
days?
deal.
What is happening?
Yeah, wait till you hear. Well, I'm telling you, wait till you hear, because me and Simon on the regular podcast this week, we do the Fartacular. Didn't love that. And don't like Metamorpho. And also there's a couple other books that I was not too hip with. But for the most part, DC's had a couple good weeks. So it's kind of just the lay of the land. So with that, though, I do like this. And I actually admitted before that I'm more of a Kelly Thompson fan than some other people. So I ended up not being, so, sold against the idea of Kelly
Yeah,
Thompson
I'm the same. I
on.
don't really know her that
Don't like
well,
her stuff at
work-wise.
DC. That Birds of Prey book
Yeah,
was garbage.
but this has surprised me. I think out of all the absolute books so far, this one has surprised me by how much I've got invested in it. As it's gone on.
I want to tell people, just so that they get so out of, not bent out of shape, but it'll blow their mind. I read every issue of Kelly Thompson's Captain Marvel. So there, I should get a prize for that. I ended up.
I didn't know she'd done that. There you go.
I was
See, I don't know
reviewing a lot
the
too.
writer.
50 issues, and I read every single one. It's not all great, I'll tell you that. She had some good ideas, and then kind of got wacky with things. Had a lot of girls' night out issues. This is what's happening. Which I'm telling you, we'll get one in this Absolute Wonder Woman. She does it every time. She'll have Edda's sister, and Diana go out for a girls' night out, and it'll be nonsense. But here's where the this crazy concept
Here's where the fun begins.
Of fun
Quote Han
Jim,
Solo.
Positive Jim might end here, because this is a weird book. It is the Absolute Martian Manhunter #1. It's written by Dennis Camp, and I'll say right up, to be right on Front Street, don't like the guy. He blocked me. I've gotten in fights with him. I think that he allegedly might smoke too much pot and get ideas that need to be reeled in. That's the start, but it's also art by Javier Rodriguez. And the minute you look at this book, I think that this is one of those books that you can see right away if you are going to love it, or if this has to convince you more. I'm not going to say that I looked at the art and said I hate it, but I'm not one who's going to look at this and say, oh my God, I don't even care what the words are. I love it. It threw me off a bit. It threw me off actually a lot, the art. But what is your take? Because it does feel like something that would be more along the lines. Also, I want to mention that I swear to God, if you would have changed one or two things, because still his name's John, this could be an absolute Constantine book easily. Like it
Oh
would
yeah.
take one, panel to change it to that. And I swear to God, I kind of wish it was. But yeah, what
You know,
about you?
it got me, Jim, and this is going back years. I've not reread it, so I can't say. But absolute Shade the Changing Man. I got Shade the Changing Man vibes from this right from the start.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Don't know if you know that Peter Milligan back in the day. Just a weird. That kind of book was all about atmosphere, like strangeness, a little bit
Mhm.
surreal. You know, you weren't really sure what the story was. And this first issue, I think that pretty much sums up
Yeah,
the first
yeah,
issue.
yeah. Well, it's weird. It's going to be weird to talk about. And I also, will lean on you because I've talked to you a lot. We've done a lot of shows and whatnot, but you kind of know that dark stuff isn't my stuff. The idea of magic, a lot of these characters. Though, with the Grant Morrison podcast we do on the Patreon, it's getting me more, in tune or allowing the deal. But again, Constantine, I don't really like the character. Martian Manhunter, you don't really have a lot with them, but this play of it is kind of wacky. And so by the
You
end of
don't like
this,
Constantine? Really?
no, like I laugh
Didn't
at
know
them,
that.
but I
Oh my
wouldn't sit there
God.
and read all the. I know you love them,
That's
but
it, Jim. We are no longer friends.
I wouldn't sit there and like, oh my God, I got to read this Constantine run. I'll read him, and I do like him when he's in things because he's basically scumbag. But I do think
I
too.
love the original Hellblazer. That's one of the first, comics that I just fell in love
Yeah.
with. Seriously,
I think
back in the days
Constantine,
of Jamie Delano,
he
and
runs
Garth
into
Ennis.
trouble with one of the characters that I do really like, Guy Gardner.
He's a
They
nasty
have the
piece of
same
work,
deal.
Jim.
He
Ask
is.
anyone.
But yeah, really, including him. But I think that when he's written as a guest star with people, they always go to the basic deal. And that's not the great. It's like I said, Guy Gardner or Damian Wayne a lot when he's a guest star. It's just, there's the bratty kid, or Guy Gardner's like, there's the handsy jerk. But Constantine's okay. I read, since the New 52, the newer stuff in like James Tynan's run and things like that, I did read and review. I just was never into it. But we get into this. And it's weird. You end up having a play where at the end of this issue, I don't know that anybody's going to be able to tell me, hey, what's the story about? Well, the story's about that Martian Manhunter's really wacky. And is he Martian Manhunter? Is he this and what? And so you play this whole deal of there was an explosion. He was in the explosion. We see kind of the explosion. He, seems off. And I think that it just boils down to, and this is just a guess, but I think a lot of people would talk about it as well, is the idea that he died. He died in that explosion, and then this
not just
Martian
the explosion,
entity,
Jim. And trust Dennis Camp. And I'm not going to get into politics and stuff, but it had to be, didn't it? It had to be basically a suicide bomber.
Yeah, so it was that, and again, Dennis Camp, he gets some wacky ideas. I just don't really like the guy, but a lot of people love it, so it's fine. But I'm getting the
blows
vibe,
himself up in a restaurant,
and
in a
I'll
cafe.
ask everybody.
John Jones.
Yeah,
Is he dead?
I'll
Is he
ask
alive?
everybody in the chat. I think that he died, and whatever the Martian entity, whether it was out and about, because they do stress in some of the interviews, that they are two separate things. They're not what it was before. And I think what we're getting here is basically, maybe you could call a ripoff of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. I think that you're going to have where Johns thinks that he's alive and still a human, but in fact, he is being kind of puppeted and brought about by this Martian Manhunter deal. So I think
did the Martian Manhunter save his life, or would he have died without his interference?
Yeah, because everybody's really into the
it.
idea that, man, like you were in the middle of a huge explosion and you barely have anything wrong with you.
And he's like going back to work the next day almost.
Yeah. And it's weird too, because as you go, he also starts saying things. This is the idea. If he's Johns, Martian Manhunter, and he was like, why would it be the idea where he's just learning, like, oh my God, like I think I can read these minds, and hey, I have this smoke deal. It's because this is new to him, because
John's right, and I'm confused now because he's Agent John Jones, isn't he?
Yeah.
Character.
Again,
so it's like, hang on a minute.
So you have the deal and this entity, and it's very stylistic. But again, all I can tell you is by the end, I can't give anything a 10 or a 1. When I don't know what the hell's going on. Like, I'm looking at these people, and I swear to God, all these people will review it, and half of them, I'm looking at it, most of them on the stupid roundup, you look, and this guy gives it a 10. It's barely average to him, because his average after 700 reviews is a 9.6. Like all these people love everything, and I know for a
The last time I
fact.
looked at that site, it was like every single review was a 10 because Gabe
Gabe,
hadn't had
Gabe's
his
hit
review
that.
hadn't been posted
And then
yet.
you have user reviews yelling. But again, Gabe's Gabe. But I know
Gabe.
for a fact, just to spell out to everybody, if you think this is a 10, that's fine. But I don't think by the end of this issue, you have enough of a grip of anything to say, you might say, man, it wowed me. But is that a 10 when you don't know what the hell's going on? Because I don't know
It's
how anybody
style over
could.
substance, Jim. They're going for style over substance. And yeah, it's very impressive if you like this kind of like, hey, this is cool. I'm not sure what's going on, but it looks good. It's got some interesting ideas. But as you say, as Gabe has said, what's the story and who is this character? We don't really know.
Yeah. And so when you get this, and Brad Wenner said he didn't know what was going on in Absolute Flash either. I didn't give that a 10 either. I think, what do we give that? Like a 7? Something like that around?
7.75, I think, 7.5.
Be close to that. But yeah, the whole thing, and this is, Dan said it, I'm telling you, that's what it is. It's the anatomy lesson. It is the Alan Moore Swamp Thing that I think you're going to find out that he indeed is died. And now he thinks he's alive. He's playing the game, and then it'll be that. But is that something that's a series? Or is that something that is a cool little one-shot and intriguing, whatever? But by the end, I don't know what's going on. And I'll ask other people, too, about this. And this is one of my big things, too. Do you like him by the end? I'm asking you, Gabe. I called you Gabe. Now I'm sus.
Sauce.
Right. Do you actually, by the end, say, man, that guy's a good guy. That guy's a cool dude. I want to hang with him. I don't like him at all.
I don't even know, because I don't know anything about him hardly.
Just that he's lying to his wife.
I think he's a bit sus. I know he likes smoking. That's about it.
They all do. And again, one of the things that we end up doing, we did the first appearance of Martian Manhunter, John Johns, in the comics for our retro review this week. And one of the big things in that is that he's kind of, it's really odd, some of the hand waving and that from back in the day, but he ends up where he goes into a police station, just decides he's going to be a detective, but people start smoking and he like recoils from it. It's, oh my God, fire, the fire. And I think that's what you're doing in this, to show that a fire actually did blow, John Jones up, but there's a lot of smoking, a lot of the flame and stuff, and he's not reacting to it. So there is something different. Again, I think it's a tell that he's not a Martian from Mars. It's a different deal. And not, again,
Jim, I love it when he sparks up in the hospital. The doctor's like, hey, what are you doing? This is a hospital. You can't like that here. And then he's going, wait a minute. Yeah, but where's all this smoke coming from?
And
Can he see that?
And see, when
John Jones,
when he's saying that, he does see. And again, it feels like this isn't something that a guy who is a detective and is, his age, he looks old enough, he would know better to do that. But that's why I think all these are little hints. And I was going to say subtle, but I don't think they're that subtle. The idea that it is somebody that is like kind of melding in and taking over the body to allow him to live, to then not know the rules. He's like, hey, smoke it up, Johnny. And he's there in the hospital. And then when he sees, but there's all this other smoke, again, he sees that stuff. It's very weird. And that's
he sees like multicolored smoke, doesn't he? It's the colors of the Mars and the Martian Manhunter that keeps coming up throughout the book. But yeah, I think it's only him that's seeing that colored smoke.
And Brad asked about the last page, and we'll talk about that. It didn't work out at all. There's a thing where you look at it. No, it doesn't work out digitally at all. It's a very odd play, but we'll get to that. But the idea also, Brandon, he said that he thinks, this series is clearly the first to be canceled because it's shot barely ordered. But lo and behold, it got extended. This was supposed to be 6 issues. It's now extended to 12. I think that was
Slack,
to me what that feels like. And if this makes sense to people, it feels like the idea of when Yara Flor, all of a sudden you get some screenshots and there's a cover with Yara Flor, and people went so nuts that DC went so over the top. They were even going to have a TV show based on just people liking a sketch, and then nothing happened from it because, you didn't have a story base. So I think that most of the things, I think that the idea of saying, hey, and Dennis Camp did go, and, oh man, all the great response. I'm like, great response? The thing, he announced this like 5 hours after it came out. This is something, the Absolute books are doing so well that most of the stuff will do well, and you'll extend it anyway.
Especially the first issue. A first issue is always going to do well. And as you say, the Absolute books have all been doing fantastic. And this will have sold well no matter what, wouldn't it? Even before people read it.
Yeah, and even that, Fearmarnock says it is weird to start something with a 6th issue. But again, I think it's that they're like, man, this Martian Manhunter is not going to sell. But there's going to be the play here with the whole thing. And yeah, it does make, and Brandon says it makes Scott Snyder look like a good guy that he's extending it. Though I'll tell you, Scott Snyder's been doing the rounds that he does. He likes to talk to people behind the scenes, and he was kind of trying to butter up Gabe about Dennis Camp, but Gabe wasn't buying it. So there you go. But again, we're kind of just talking in general, but that's kind of what this issue is. You know what I mean? Where you
I like
end
it
up
when he walks
where this
outside the
goes.
hospital, Jim. When we see him outside, everyone else is smoking
Oh,
there as
yeah.
well outside. That's
Holy
fair enough.
moly.
But what's interesting here is, his wife is saying, "Wait a minute, you just cleared for Judy. How?" And John Jones starts talking about the doctor, and then you get the idea that he's read his mind somehow.
Well,
He's saying
read his mind. It
his
seems
wife
like
is
he
having an
changed.
affair.
He did.
He doesn't
And
know what to do.
so he
Poor
is.
guy still
He's
loves
reading
her.
minds like Martian
Yeah.
Manhunter
So
would.
there you
But the
go.
other thing that's weird, first off, the only good thing that I can say in this is that it kind of verifies that in the absolute universe, there's none of that damn vaping. Everybody's just smoking. Like, they're smoking like old school.
Wonder
right?
where you were going with that then.
They're going old school here. I don't like either. But the thing is, but still. So you end up where he comes out and he says, oh, and she's like, immediate duty. That's not what the doctor said. The doctor said you should take 1 to 2 weeks off. And that would be something where it's insane for them to go. So I'm thinking, there might even be what we're not seeing is he's also manipulating or mind controlling some people as well. But he's definitely reading minds. And when he says this, it's not like the idea. And again, he's married. He has a kid. These aren't things that, what you usually see with Martian Manhunter who comes to Earth and has a built-in family. This is a guy that something just happened and, things have changed. And it's not like, oh, you always have these premonitions or whatever. She's like, well, what the hell did the doctor tell you that? I think also because of it, he's confused a bit, thinking that maybe you read a mind, but do you also think that's them telling you something if you've never read a mind before? Like all of a sudden you hear these things. He might just think that the guy told him because he was reading minds unintentionally. It was just happening.
Yeah.
And kind of the play with the smoke and deal. And you have a lot of symbolism with the red planet and stuff. It's on his lighter. Then you have the cigarette deal and whatnot. But he says, yeah, they're going to let me go back to work. And that's the best thing, all that. And she just wants a vacation.
She can't believe it. It's insane. The building you were in exploded. It's a miracle you survived. You're going to work tomorrow?
Yeah. It's like, it is crazy. I mean, he was in a bombing and he's going back. And then she ends up mentioning the son and says, he has this new speech therapist. It seems like when we get to him, he's a nonverbal kid. And that kind of plays into the idea of maybe he sees things a little different, but he's the one who seems to be able to tell things are different with his old daddy there. But yeah, you end up where the wife's like, I miss you. And he's this is the thing. He's kind of a dick. He's kind of like, yeah, well, you miss me more, bitch. I'm going to work. And then when he goes
to work tomorrow,
they beg him, like, please, we want to give you things off. Like, this is something, if it happens, you have to give people off. You can't just force them back. They could get in big trouble. I mean, it's the absolute universe, but whatever.
There's no way you could be at work next day. No way.
And he comes up with the deal. Well, I want to keep following them cases. I want to see what's going on. And if I, take a month off, this will be crazy. I won't be able to do that. And you even see, the backgrounds are going wacky. I swear to God, it's Dennis Kemp smoking too much pot. But you end up where
especially that panel there, with the three of them in the office.
And
it's
again,
pretty cool though, Jim. When we see it together, the 2 pages together. I think you're reading it 2 pages. Like me,
I do
you?
2 pages.
So
you see it. It's the back and forth with
panels.
it. It is kind
pretty
of cool.
awesome.
Now, in that though, does it make it better? This is my struggle with it. I don't know that just because it's stylistic, it makes it better. And what I usually say with things like that, like when we have issues that jump time, here we're going to start 8 hours ahead, then we go back, whatever. At the end, when you put it all together and you realize they just did that because it's a basic bitch story, there's nothing to tell. And I kind of get that, but this first issue doesn't have that much to say. It's more about the feel and the mystery of it.
Yeah,
but
does it serve
overall,
the story? Maybe not, but I like the look of it. I'm more of an art guy anyway. I'm really into the art, so and I do like Javier Rodriguez. I've got to shout that out.
Yeah.
I got into him with what was it? The History of the Marvel Universe that Mark Waid and he did back in 2019.
Yeah.
Big recommend for that, Jim. By the way, it's a 6-issue miniseries. The art in that is amazing.
I didn't know that my hot take on the vaping would get the people. Fear monarchists is down. I'm just saying the problem I had is that when my wife's around, suddenly I become the the source of money for the vaping. I'm like, really? Like, I'm gonna pay for that? The juice nonsense, and then it like spills and it smells like shit. I'm telling you, at one point I did think I said like, what the hell flavor did you have for this time? Like crap? because that's what it smells like. It just smells like a big turd. And then
Bogey flavor?
got
Oh no,
mad
that's
at
the
me.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, really.
All
The
flavor
crazy, all
beans.
flavored beans. Yeah. And
Vomit flavor?
yeah, so you end up where you have it.
Sorry,
And Brandon
where are we,
actually,
Jim? We're going on Martian Manhunter
yeah.
here, aren't we? We're all over the place.
Brandon is talking about the idea that at least some of these Absolute books do offer something different and pretty cool compared to the Marvel's Ultimates, which, aside from the issues that do have Spider-Man in it, are a mess. I'll tell you, this week I didn't even read Ultimate Spider-Man. I didn't bother. I'm done with it. I'm done with the Ultimate books, even for, our podcasts and things like that. They just bore me, and it's heading
Really?
towards, I'm done. They all, again, I feel weird, like the idea I only really read 2, and then with that, it's like, I'm not even getting anything from it. Though I still say that. I'll still probably read the old Ultimate X-Men to drive everybody, crazy about. But with all this stuff going on, you end up the Sphere of Monarch, to get a little bit of a joke there. But yeah, so when you're going into all this, what do you get then? Then Martian Manhunter ends up going, and he ends up he thinks a lot, and he's gonna go and investigate the bombing. And is that
He's
like
not supposed to? He's been told not to by his bosses, but he's like, I'm going anyway.
What is he investigating, do you think? Because if he is is he that concerned about how it happened or what happened, or is he looking for more things about himself? Is he trying to find or figure out something along the lines that there was something there that caused this? Because again, if and people even in the chat are saying, if in fact it was, Martian John Johns who then gets the body, and why? And why would you do it? And what happened to make it that? Like,
well, we don't know yet.
And that's kind of the mystery.
Yeah.
So, and as it progresses, you do start having another voice talking as well, and coming out, and you do have this smoke type deal that really deals with it. But he's able to, in that now, he's not just quite reading minds, all of it. He's even seemingly getting some things from their past and things, and it really comes into play when he does inhale some of the smoke. And it seems like the smoke are people's memories, people's feelings. I don't know, but that's what it feels like by the end. But you get these little asides, and you're like, here's his best friend who they made love, the deal, because he's trying to figure out, who is this bomb or whatnot, and ends up getting a neighbor who wants to hide her cannabis use. I'm like, okay, come on, settle down.
He's like, at one point he's asking himself, isn't he, in these narration boxes, how do I know this
that's what
about
I'm saying.
this person?
He doesn't know that. So it's not like he's saying, I'm going to read their minds. It just kind of pops at him.
It's just happening.
The smoke is kind of, in my mind, that is what somebody who's the unlearned of what's happening, that's how he's visualizing, because your brain is going to do with what it sees, but it doesn't have any clue of what's happening. So it kind of feels that way. But again, he goes home, and they said they wanted him to go on vacation. He comes home and is like, yep, no vacation. Like, what a jerk. Like, this guy's a workaholic. I hate him already. I mean, the guy likes going to work. What the hell? But says, and even when she's like making dinner, and it looks like the carrots and the onion, they all turn to that gloop, and you have the red deal. And
looks like one of your pizzas there, Jim.
Yeah, it does.
So I've been told.
Unfortunately, there.
Psychedelic, man.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what happened. That guy slipped those freaking mushrooms on there. I had no idea. But you end up where
we've been reading too much Morrison.
Yeah, exactly. So she's like, "Hey, Tyler's in his room. Can you go see him and whatnot?" And like I said, it seems like he might be nonverbal. He's there making like clay figures, and it's
this
like
is my favorite page.
Mom
in the book.
and him.
It's really
says,
good.
"Oh, well, where am I? Where's me?" And points over, and there's that one-eyed Martian, and it seems like he's able to sense what's going on. And maybe it is that play that he is.
Is that how the boy Tyler? Is that how he's seeing his father now? Can he see, his aura or something? Because young children can see things more than we.
Yeah, and somebody who looks like on the spectrum, they're going to play the idea that they might even be more in tune with something like that.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
kind of the play, and you see it. It's kind of a cool page, and it's kind of a neat thing. But again, John's just like, what the hell? Like he it's not like he's like, you don't tell anybody or something like that. He's confused.
It's no comment, is it? He doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
Next minute he's in bed, and that's it.
And he's in bed and he can't sleep, and
he's thinking of the smoke. Jim,
the smoke, and he's touching it. Then he's smoking. His wife looks like she got some stuff up her butt. Right there, like she's look at the look of her. You're like, what's happening here?
What happened there?
Look at her. She's like all like,
look at those eyes.
Yeah, crazy. But yeah, and then there he goes, and he's out and about with people, and as he's with people, you do have more of the smoke, more of the things going on, but he's getting checked. And again, this is like the next day he goes, and then he thinks back at when he was first on the force, and it's just not that exciting to me. It may turn out to be pretty good, but if this is the pacing and the not getting things that, I'm more upset about what we're not getting than what we are getting, because I don't think we're getting much. But yeah,
No,
so
it does feel like a series of random scenes, doesn't it,
yeah,
put together? So yeah, you are getting a little bit of his background, but not that
but
much. And you get the impression that he just doesn't know what's
I
going on.
think the
He's
weird
totally
play, yeah,
confused.
and the background is like, are is it real? Is that what happened? Because he seems to be wacky and all that, but it seems also that you could play that is the Martian, like learning about him through that. I don't know, but you end up where he goes to talk to this guy's mom, the bomber, and she's like, he was good, whatever, and there's the smoke coming out her ears, and then he breathes it in, and because she's talking about her, he gets to see this little kid who was a nice little kid. I thought we were really going to get the idea of then he was bullied and then this, but he just sees that this kid, he was a nice kid. He ended up, the father left, all these things, but he's able to do this, but he's
I thought, Jim,
not
here, the
really
mother, I thought she
down.
must have put on Sergeant Pepper's and started
Yeah,
playing it
really.
backwards for what was,
I'm telling
what
you,
was
the blue
going on.
meanies showed up, and they have
Look at
all
this.
sorts
The
of
art, come on, the art
problems.
is pretty spectacular.
It is pretty
It's
cool.
crazy.
Again, but
I like
is
it.
it giving me anything?
Does it serve the
I'm
story? I don't
struggling.
know. I
I'm
don't know.
struggling with this. But yeah, then you end up where he like stumbles out, and then you have just, as it goes on, a lot of the things with smoke, this explosion again, him inhaling things, coughing, all these things. And he says it's the people are on fire, but no one seems too bothered by it because he doesn't really understand what it is. So you get this all blending in as he keeps going. And again, it's like, breathe it in. I hear a voice, a cool voice, a green voice. And I don't know how I can tell it's green. I'm like, yeah, you're high. And then he ends up like it all vroom, vroom, and it all like swirls together. And that at the end, you do see where we do get that page. That is the big thing if you got it physically. But even then, he goes through boom, 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 boom. Then there's the bombing. Then you're there. It really feels like there's no way he should have survived that. And then you end up where he's like, okay, it's not a miracle. Me, us, we're there. And the idea of him combining in with the Martian Manhunter. And the big thing in the digital, you just have two separate pages. There's no possible way to hold it up to the sun. And seriously, I don't like going outside. But the idea where you have it, you put it up, and it's the idea. It's the idea, yeah. And it's the idea of seeing, oh, there's John. Oh, he's also part of the Manhunter deal that goes on while his pretty much looks like dead body is down below. So that's where I think it's the big oomph.
I wanted to ask anyone
there
in the
we go.
chat if you've got a physical copy, Jim. That last page, because it's the writing is mirrored in the background. Is it
Yep.
meant to be mirrored? Is
Yep.
that how it works in the physical as well?
Yeah. So when you go through, it's because you're seeing it through, and it's the play. It just ends up, and even then, you have the play of I'm the Martian mind effer. I'm like, come on, come on, you piece of, I'm like,
We've got Brandon in the chat. Brandon saying that goddamn backwards
Yeah,
writing. It's
I
like, oh
can't
my god,
take
it's like Zatanna.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Just lo and behold, the stupidest issue of the week is the Fartacular, right? Satana
Yeah.
shows up with backwards word magic. I'm like, I can't win. Even
Was
in
she
that
in the
piece of crap.
Fartacular?
Yeah, she's in there because they think it's
Was
a
she
spell.
farting?
No, she came in. The whole thing was a big. I'll tell you right now. We talk about it on the podcast, and lo and behold, you want to get a good laugh. For about 55 minutes, we talk about that issue. Number one, if you haven't looked at the Harley Quinn Fartacular, and why would you? It's over 40 pages long. It's one of the
my
longest.
God.
It's ridiculous. And in it, you know what the biggest problem is? Here's the biggest problem. There's not enough fart jokes in it. There's not enough fun fart jokes in a fart joke book.
That's
it was
crazy.
lame. It was so ridiculous. I'm like, oh my goodness. I like a good fart joke. I don't mind that, but yeah, you have just wacky shit in that. We talked about it
40
way too
pages
long.
of fart jokes, Jim. Jesus.
Way
I don't know.
too long. No, it should have been.
It should have been
18
funny.
Well, it should have been. Yeah, it should have. It's not fun. It's such a slog. And then me and Simon, we start talking about the important things of what makes you fart. Stuff that people want to know. It was
Did
the
Absolute
worst.
Martian Manhunter issue 1 make you fart, Jim? That's the question.
Well,
or did it make you want to smoke? 'Cause it made me want to smoke.
Yeah, it made you want to smoke.
Monarch, shout out to you.
Yeah. I don't know. It's again, and it was brought up. I mean, I can't really say that I hate it because I don't know what's going on, because that's what kind of was going on with Flash. Now, I didn't give it a 10, but I still am intrigued. But that, if you remember me talking, I did say that I am relying on Jeff Lemire, who's one of my favorite writers. Dennis Camp is far from one of my favorite writers, though this doesn't seem the same as, say, the Ultimates book, but I don't think he's a very good writer. That's my personal opinion. Everybody can have their own opinion. And if you do think that he comes through with things, then, have at it. He might, and he still might. I hope he surprises me. But as it is, I hate a first issue that the only reason that I'm going to continue with the next issue is to say, I want to know what the hell is going on. Like you have cliffhangers and stories that at the end, yeah, there's all sorts of reasons why you continue. Oh man, that was cool. Oh man, I never saw something like that. You can get that from this. But the real big thing for me is what I say at the end is, will I read issue number 2? And I'm like, I guess, because I want to know what the hell is happening, because I don't know anything of what is going on. And one of the biggest problems is he's relying on our knowledge of Martian Manhunter to subvert it, but we don't know what he's subverting, and we don't know what John Jones was like before any of this. So I can't even say like, oh, I get it, this. And again, he could be clever, and it might be real clever by the end, but is it going to take, say it takes 3 issues, 4 issues to actually reveal? It's not a great way to start a series with the idea
No.
that you're not sure of what's going on. I think that what it benefits, I said it before, that a lot of people are coming around to even stuff like Wonder Woman that we talked about earlier. There was people who were fighting with me nonstop about how much they didn't like Wonder Woman, but now they realize, okay, it's a different deal. It's a slow burn. I'm in. I think this benefits from that, but it also benefits because a lot of people are really liking the Absolute books. So you're going to keep giving it a shot. This is what happens when you end up with the Ultimates deal, in my mind, where people were really into Ultimate Spider-Man. So they're going to give the other things at least a chance. But the idea of all this, and again, I saw some people who had told me, tooth and nail, that they would never read Ultimate X-Men because that's not X-Men, it's bullshit, and I don't know what's going on and whatever. But they love this. I'm like, well, what the hell's the difference? Like, I think that Ultimate X-Men actually is more straightforward than this. But again, it might get that itch to some people, and this is what
For
they
me,
like.
this first issue, I did kind of enjoy it, but it feels like it's overlong. It feels there's too many pages where he's just going through the same kind of story points, if you know
Yeah,
what I mean.
yeah. That's what I'm
Trying to
saying.
figure out what happened, who am I, and what's this like weird voice I'm hearing. But it went on a bit too long. But I love the art. I've got to say that I'm a big fan of Javier Rodriguez. I know not everyone is, Jim. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and
I'm not a 10 out of 10 though, folks. I'm not a 10 like CBR. Flipping out this week.
yeah, and again,
Unbelievable.
Jalgron too says that he doesn't like Dennis Kemp either, and he said he disagrees with me, that he loved the issue, but he said mostly due to art. I would guess, really, Jack, that it's all due to art. I mean, the idea that the art is carrying everything here, and lo and behold, I didn't like the art. That's the biggest problem. I
Oh
didn't like
no,
it.
really?
I didn't
Fair
like
enough.
it. I'm not a real like this. Actually, to me, people might go whatever, but this actually looks like it could be Riley Rossmo bullshit. That it
You
turns me
don't
off.
agree with Geek
It
Dad,
turns
Jim?
me
Some of
off.
the best
No,
art I've ever seen in
yeah.
DC Comics for a
I
while.
think that he just had like an eye operation. He got eye surgery, and this is the first thing he saw. No, again, it's art is very subjective. Everything is
Yeah.
like that. Fart jokes are subjective, I hear.
I gotta
But
say, I'm tempted to pick up a physical copy if I can get one, which I'll
and
have to
so
order
like
just to
here,
get the
and
first issue for the art.
you could go into a lot of different things and a lot of craziness. Like the idea that if you would go percentage wise, like as a reviewer, I go gut feeling. You'll never hear me say, well, I gave the art a 4. And the only time I'll do that is a joke. If it's a really bad issue, I'll say, well, I give it a 2 out of 10, but the art was a 5. Like that's the crazy joke. But in the meantime, you'll never hear me break it down 50%, 50%. Hey, we do this. Some sites at one point, people were telling me, we have to give 1 point, scale to the lettering. Like, really? Like, so it becomes, that to me becomes too technical. I don't end up reading it. When I'm done, I end up knowing if I liked it or not. And I have a gut feeling of, okay, that's an 8, that's a 6, that's a 5. And hopefully when people do listen to us, whether or not you agree with me, but you can see where I'm coming from, and they're not outlandish. The idea. There was a guy that I did record with that would say the issue is the greatest thing ever, and then give a 6, which perplexed me. But the idea, all this going on, it just ends up where I'm not an art guy. An
I
art
wonder what Eric would have thought of this, or what he does
he
think
would
of
have
it if he's
hated it.
reading it.
He would have
Do you reckon?
hated this.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, he would have been screaming and yelling. He would have hated it.
What is
But
this nonsense?
again, to me, it's weird. People have their art can never carry an issue for me. I don't really, art's not my thing. I'm here for the story. And so what I do with the art is it good storytelling? And you could say that it is that in this, but I think everything's being wacky for wacky's sake at this point. It's here to wow you in a idea of not the story, not the, it's going to wow you with the visuals and the mood and that sort of thing. And again, that unfortunately that's not my thing. So I'm going to be lower than a lot of people, and you can kind of, curve it up or down depending on what you think or how you go about things. But what would you give it?
Okay, for a score, I'm going to give it a very strong 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah. And it's funny, Fearmonic said that the art carried the Wonder Woman book, but again, I liked the art, but it's not something that I ever really, I actually like the story. I like to see about the weapons. The art, though, made it more epic. That's what I'm saying. The art, for me, has to blend in and tell the story along with it. You could say that this did it, but it didn't impress me. It just threw it. What are you, a 7.5?
I'm a 7.5, yeah.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I say I'm like a 6.8. I'm a little under a 7. I could even be convinced to a 7. I do want to see what's happening. I didn't hate it.
I will be reading issue 2, Jim, because I want to know what's going on. I want to give it at least 3 issues.
Yeah.
You always say that, don't you?
And then we'll be talking about it anyway. But I just thought that, and Joseph Wolf said he feels like comics being wacky is one of my favorite things in comics. Not for me. I like fun, but not wacky. And especially when I think that this is a guy, Dennis Camp, who this is his turn of, hey, it's my turn to pretend I'm Grant Morrison and Alan Moore.
Well, there is a feeling of that about
and
it.
And that's where I'm like, and what happens when it surface level, the idea of doing that would be wacky. And then kind of filling in, I don't think it's as smart as some of these reviewers were saying. I mean, what could be, we'll see. Like, this could all go in their face and things like that.
I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as Absolute Batman. Like Brandon's just saying that as well. That's a complete blast. That is wacky as well, but it's, it's so entertaining. This was just more like intriguing. It's like, okay, I want to know, what's going on, but I do feel it was overlong. It was a bit too long.
Fearmonic said, keep the wacky to the racers, but don't read that Wacky Racers book that came out years ago. One of the worst things I ever read. Oh my God, it was bad. It was so bad. But yeah, I mean, right away, if John Johns, I know it seems hateful, but if he grabbed that son of his and kicked him into the ocean, I might have went up about 0.5.
No!
Nonverbal
was
kid,
the best
right
part
in the ocean. No, that was the best part. That was and that was actually the thing you're like, all right, like do more of that. Not this.
What are you doing making a doll? Like, I don't look like that, boot.
Yeah,
Kick,
really. So we will be, obviously, we'll be talking about the next issue and things like that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it develops. And hopefully,
Jim, by the way, you don't like wacky? You don't like wacky? What about Wakizashi?
I do like Wakizashi. I love Wakizashi.
Hey?
I'll do that. Like, that cuts, right? The Wakizashi. But you end up also, just to ask people who like this issue, I don't know that I can end up going through this type of issue every time, though. You know what I mean?
No.
You're going to have to calm down a little.
There's got to be more story in next issue.
You can't go full out wacky with the deal every time. So maybe it is intriguing to start. Seems to have worked. I know Scott Snyder's saying that it's extended and all that. But we will end it here. I wish I'm gonna have to actually give a little bit of talk. First off, I want you to tell people where they can find more of the Wakizashi Tea House, which I kind of revealed. But you give them that while I get a song. That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Will do. Well, this has been a blast so far, and don't worry, we're not going anywhere. We're going to keep talking. Jim will be answering the super chats later on. But yeah, you can find me, believe it or not, on YouTube, Wakizashi's Tea House.
Believe it.
I do. I believe it. And Jim, actually, it's funny you say this. I was inspired by Absolute Martian Manhunter, believe it or not, to drop a kind of audio reading and review of the history of the Marvel Universe with Javier Rodriguez on art on that. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
The first part of issue 1, it's worth checking out. So if you fancy listening to a bit of Grey, reading a bit of Marvel history, you can check that out on the channel.
And that's cool. And also, again, if you're just listening here, we do have a weekly podcast, very weekly. This is episode, I believe, 582. It's going to be a long one. They do end up on YouTube
Wow.
eventually, but if you want to get early access, you can go to our Patreon, which there's a link in the show notes. And we do a lot of shows. Me and Gray on the Patreon do a Yosagi Yojimbo show. We also do a Grant Morrison show. And then the actual big podcast comes out each week on Saturday instead of Sunday night on the regular feed. But if you do listen to podcasts, you can go and look that up as well. And I kind of brought that up also because me and Gray end up talking about the Long Halloween, the last Halloween issue that came out this week, something that we hadn't been covering on the podcast, but we will be talking about that from now on too. So that's pretty cool as well. We almost did Animal Man, but I did have to read 6 issues of the last Halloween. So I ended up a little bit late, but we end up, the next thing we're talking about on the Grant Morrison show is the Animal Man run
You
of
know
his,
it's going to
which
be
is
great.
It is so good. I do love that. And yeah, Brandon said the latest episode was over 5 hours. This one's probably going to be just as much. And again, if you are on the Patreon too, you kind of can see how the old podcast, before we had a Patreon, the podcast did range around 10 hours each week. And if you did add up the absolute stuff we did last week, plus the spotlight, it did last week was about 9 hours. So it's kind of in that deal.
Fantastic, Jim.
So ridiculous. So ridiculous. But yeah, it'll be a big one
Ridiculous?
again. And it's going to have a lot of people. And it's a Weird Science Fartacular. Because the biggest book of the week is Harley Quinn Fartacular. So there'll be plenty of fart songs and a lot of jokes and stuff. Legit, I was going to play the whole deal where I was going to really pretend that the Fartacular was the most important thing ever. So we were basing it. I was going to actually ask every guest that was on the show, what is your favorite fart story? Then I thought people would get grossed out. Plus, Gabe doesn't have a sense of humor. Gabe wouldn't have been involved. And also, I've seen your reaction when I send you little sneak peeks of my songs and you don't like them. You end up, you don't know if you should call the authorities on me or something like that.
I worry about it, Jim, sometimes, and I'm getting worried and more worried every week.
Exactly. It's crazy. But yeah, all that. Check the show notes eventually with the idea of all our shows. We have an X-Men show that Jason and Ruben do, but we have a lot of reading clubs. We have a regular Marvel show, all that, an indie show that I have to edit. I have a lot of editing to do. And we even did a review. This past week, we did Bug Wars 2, which I like, but also ending up doing a review of Drew from the Aficionados, his book that he had out, which is pretty darn good. It's pretty cool. So we end up doing that as well. So check all that stuff out, but we'll say goodbye as the podcast side of things, but we'll continue on a bit on the live stream after a little tribute to Gray.
しました感動して感謝しました本当に大好きです私は普通の男ではありません私はもう本性の愛です私にからかわないでくださいそうしないとあなたは消えてしまいます私は普通の男ですでも私はあなたを殺しますだからそのまま受け取ってください足元に注意した方がいいよ準備をしてくださいフォローしないと大変なことになりますよ私に中途はない私はあなたを殺します私は日本の愛ですあなたは警告されました
All right. There we go. Yeah, I saw in the deal.
Are you still there, Jim?
Brandon was saying that Doc, and I think he's saying he can't wait till Doc does the Harley Quinn Fartacular. They're not doing that for Worst of the Week. They're actually doing the X Hunt, I believe, that book. But maybe they're doing a special deal, but I do think that they're just doing that. I actually said to do the Fantastic Four, which I thought was one of the worst issues, though Sully loved it. Sully thought it was a tearjerker. I'm like, the guy who's writing Fantastic Four should really maybe know Ben Grimm. That book drove me nuts. But yeah, the Fartacular. Ooh-wee. Again,
Woo-wee.
the idea that it was going to offend anybody, it's not. It's the only thing offensive. It was, I think, $8, and it wasn't funny. Like there wasn't anything to it. But we do end up having a couple of the super chats, of course, because I'm in this deal and I can't go back. But the idea, I'm not going to be on the aficionados. That was the first one. The deal I was asked to be on, but I actually already had planned on recording stuff to finish up the podcast because of the idea of having so many people involved. And when I get done here, I have to run off to record Wonder Woman, the regular Wonder Woman with Jared. So I have all these crazy things. And so,
I
yeah.
bet you're looking forward to that, aren't you, Jim?
Yes. Yeah. That nonsense issue.
Really?
But no, well, I did end up, like I said, for the most part, I haven't been on, but it's because I keep telling Wes that I just not into it, or the idea that I'm busy, and I'm more busy now and recording time. I mean, again, today, this is what me and you recorded, then I recorded after that, then recorded with Wes, then recorded again, then we're recording. So my 5th recording. So it's crazy. I told you we were going through the deal of what the play of how many things I'm behind on the Patreon that I have to edit too, because I haven't any time to edit the stuff. But yeah, that's the thing with Joseph Whoops asking how do we review it without smelling it. Me and Simon, by the end, we were kind of guessing what they would have had to smell. But you have things in it, when you do those issues, and you'll have like, I'm eating rum raisin ice cream, and then Harley like shoves it at the, that's what you're scratching. And
Was it
sniffing.
really like a scratch and sniff, like smell book?
Yeah, and I'm guessing
The physical one.
Here's the thing. You will have a fart smell, but the way they played it out is that it's probably from Poison Ivy. When Poison Ivy farts in it to start the issue, it smells like roses because it's Poison Ivy. So it's telling you the idea of like, oh my God, it's for fart. But it
Doesn't smell like
just,
ivy.
It was just a really bad, non-funny issue that felt like it was something from the cartoon. That's all it was. It was Joanna Starr who does the Fire and Ice. So not very funny. It just wasn't funny. And then we did have where Jargon 2 says Jim is suffering from Jim Lee comic diverculitis. Like I don't that we'll be doing the Batman the Hush, and that was a little disappointing too. I really wanted to love it. I really thought that it was going to be really good. I think that Jim Lee's art, I mean, how could it be rushed? I think he's been working on it for like 10 years. But it was a little bit down.
I think that's getting a lot of unfair criticism.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's amazing, but I think when I really got into it, I wasn't hyped at all, Jim, and I was kind of like, oh man, this looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
The color as well by Alex Sinclair. His coloring is brilliant.
Great. Like we're still
story's okay.
We're finishing up the Hush on the Patreon in our one the Crisis Events Reading Club. Me and Matt, who was going to review it with me on the show, and it just ended up where I don't know. It's definitely not that as good as that. Like that art in Hush is incredible. Like there are parts where you just sit there and it's like so detailed and this and that. It's still some of the better art that's out in Hush too. It just, I don't know. It's just, I said it when it was announced and I asked people, like I've never had somebody tell me Hush was their favorite story. Nobody says to me like, hey, you have to read Hush. There's a lot of other things.
We were talking about that, weren't we, this morning?
Yeah.
Same, I'm the same.
How many
you
more
go for
people,
Long Halloween or Year One?
More people say Long Halloween if you're going to go the Jeff Loeb deal, and yet that didn't have any hype with that return, and that's pretty cool. I am actually
Hush was really hype when it first came out, and there has been a lot of hype for this, but I think the Absolute books, Jim, they kind of surpassed the hype for Hush 2. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I know that Gabe
said
that Hush 2 wouldn't sell was the funniest thing I ever heard in my life. But and Brandon said that Jim Lee draws backgrounds, but I'm telling you, go back and look at a random issue from the original Hush, and these backgrounds were incredible. Well, me and Matt, even, I think it's an episode that we still have to edit, but it's the deal where they're, on the street and there's just gargoyle, everything just looked crazy. Everything was detailed like so much. And it was weird when Talia was in and ended up where you end up having, what's it called? The deal where she gets on that ladder deal and it's almost a direct panel from what happened in the original Hush. And Superman fan said, do you think that Absolute Green Lantern art's ugly. I think it's a little weird. It
It's a
did
bit weird, yeah. We see, don't we, at the end of the Martian Manhunter
it
book, there's a preview.
it looks too like it's got that watercolory kind of look at points, but it also when this like again it's a different style, obviously, of the Martian Manhunter. But when I see it, that sort of style, it looks like it's not done. Like it looks
Yeah,
like they're like a
yeah.
day away from
There's
finishing it
something
up.
weird about
Right?
it.
Yeah,
Something
it's
off.
like
Not quite sure what it
unfinished
is.
type deal. It doesn't have that gloss to it. And I think the faces ended up in that preview looking very, nondescript and things like that. And it just feels weird. It almost feels like, if this makes sense, that it almost feels like at one point where they had the motion comics, where you'd end up just having like a set deal and then the things in the background because it's using that blur and stuff. I didn't love it. I do know people who have read it, and the people even who were like, "Man, this Martian Manhunter is going to blow your mind. It's the greatest thing," said that they didn't really like the Green Lantern. That it felt like a book that was different for a different sake. And we'll see. I haven't read it.
It's almost like a cross between a manga art
yeah, that's
style
what I'm
and
saying. It
American
does look
comic
like
book style.
that. Yeah.
I don't know if it works for it. Do you? It doesn't quite fit.
I'm telling you, when the guy's there with his arm crossed and they're looking at the TV, that looks like straight up manga. Really does. Colored deal, but yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, we'll have to see what's going on with it. But again, I think that with this, when you have things, and even say like the K-pop industry, like you always judge the things from that round, and I think a lot of people will be looking at that book if they like this Martian Manhunter, they'll be looking to have their minds blown again for Green Lantern. I don't know if it's that sort of book, so we'll also have. And yeah, Joseph Wolf said it has like an uncanny valley or an AI look. It does. It just has a weird kind of look, but it might work. I don't know, but and Sunny Waffles even said the same thing. A lot of people do get turned off when you have that what looks like photorealistic backgrounds, and then you have the thing on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's tough, but yeah, it's an odd look.
Out of all the Absolute books, I think it's the weakest just for the art, but I don't know about the story yet. I don't know.
Yeah, and again, these Absolute books are pretty good, and I like the idea right now. I hope that they connect a little more down the line, but I do like the way that they're progressing. And was said earlier, they each do have their little thing and kind of seems to be more unique than, say, the Ultimate stuff, where you have like, hey, look, it's Black Panther. Oh, what is it about? Well, it's just basically Black Panther, because it feels like a regular Black Panther book, pretty much in my mind, in that one. And the one that is kind of unique is the one that most people hate, the Ultimate X-Men. That's the one I like, but Ultimates, I can't stomach. It ends up where it's not even that Dennis Camp and his soap. It's more the idea that each issue you're just randomly like, let's talk about that. It seems so unfocused with the overall deal that it just throws me off. But this week was pretty good with DC Comics, though. We end up we have
it's a good week for DC.
I think that we have everything on the podcast except the best of the best, or whatever that Black Canary thing is. I think that's the only book that we didn't cover. Oh, we didn't.
Okay.
I couldn't find anybody to do Flash with me because nobody seems to be reading that book, and it sucks. So I don't really love it either. So I'm not going to force, and I'm not forcing somebody to read that run, a run that I didn't like at all throughout. So
I heard from someone in the Slack that it was just terrible, the story in Flash.
Yeah, and
is it up to 19, Jim? Can you believe it's been going for 19 issues now? If I've got
it's
that right.
crazy. And yeah, Joseph Wolf say that Jagoda had a picture of the Trinity together in a panel, and I can't wait for that. That's going to be really cool. I can't wait for that. And also, Sonny Waffle says Ultimate X-Men is the best X-Men of all time. I fight with people about it. It's very manga-esque, and I do like it. Sully doesn't like it because the funny thing he says, there's no strong men in it. And I'm like, well, I hope there's not too many, because these are little girls. I think it'd be real sus if you have some strong man walking around. What, you have Flex Menelo over there?
A lot of people don't like the fact that it's like a shoujo manga, do they? A young girl or a young teenage girl's kind of manga style. But I'm enjoying it. What does that say about me? I don't know, Jim.
I don't know.
I'm confused.
Because I like it. Though,
I like
if
it
you
too.
listen to our reviews, we've been down on the last couple issues. And I'll
that
tell
last
you,
issue was a bit weird.
Also,
Jesus.
with the deal of, and Sonny Waffle says they love manga. I have. At one point, we had like 15 manga podcasts. That got scaled back because Luke Hollywood bailed on me. But we have that, and the idea of I don't even know what I was talking about now. I was talking about something with Ultimate X-Men, and Peach Momoko and what.
At least it
Yeah.
dares to be different. I think out of all the Marvel books, it's the most, what's it called, Ultimate Universe. It really is very different. It's doing its own thing, isn't it? And I like that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with
There
you.
you go.
I actually like it because it's different. Again, maybe that'll be the way that it ends up being for me with Martian Manhunter, the absolute Martian Manhunter. Maybe it'll be that different deal, and I'll be able to, kind of, get involved. But at this point, again, I hate the idea of rating something a 10, a perfect score, when I swear to God, you don't know what's going on. And it's just a weird play. Very odd. But yeah, what else? Cy Spurrier, that Flash book is rough. Since we started the podcast 10 years ago, we've never not covered the Flash book. That's how bad it is. That's done.
That's
We
crazy,
failed
Jim,
it.
isn't it? Because, like you say, he's an essential DC character. Even though I'm kind of fairly new to him, I never read him in the past. But you've got to review the Flash book. It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
There was funny thing that during the New 52, there was a podcast, a Flash podcast, that got so pissed off about the Flash book that they stopped reviewing the Flash, and that's all they reviewed. And I'm like, what are they going to do? They ended up reviewing old issues, and then they bailed. Because I tell you, if you're doing something where you're doing it each and every week of the newer things or month or whatever you do, and you stop, it's like, why are you even doing it and all that? But and Superman fans said, what about Ultimate Wolverine? I'll tell you, some of the people who would have heard different things or whatnot, I did not like it from the beginning. I even had where the week that it came out, I was not on the aficionados, and I really wanted to make sure my point was taken. So I ended up a super chat that just said that Ultimate Wolverine stinks because everybody was arguing with me. So I ended up, and I think that I was right once again. But again, it's what you like, but it doesn't feel like it has any purpose at all. And I don't know, Chris Condon, I don't know. Guy is, I like him, and I love the Enfield Gang Massacre, and I really like that Texas Blood, and just not really digging a lot of the things going on. What we say this week about his Green Arrow, it feels like a book that definitely will be something you should read and trade, because each month you really don't get enough, and that seems to be his pacing. But he is a guy who is known with Westerns, it seems. So it seems like pacing is a problem with them. And Mrs. Wakazashi in the house.
Sorry about that. I was a bit muted, Jim. I've just been offered sushi tonight if I don't go out to the beer festival.
So that's the deal. She's actually
what shall I
bribing
do, folks?
you.
Let me know in the chat. Do I go to the beer festival or do I stay in for sushi?
I would rather stay in for sushi. That's what I mean. That's what I like. Plus, you have sent me pictures of the sushi that you got from some random guy on a street corner. It looks like so much better than anything I could get my hands on. Like, that stuff looks good. But yeah, and Sonny Waffle said Marvel it's hurting. It's me and Sully this week, because we're also going to do our Sunday morning deal. But we might shift it to like 11:30. Some people asked us to do it a little later because of the time zones, that we were starting at like 10:30, and it's too early for them. So we're going to maybe start at 11:30, but we're going to talk about the Godzilla Fantastic Four book. We might talk about that. We're going to talk about Red Hulk, the tie-in to One World Under Doom that barely ties in, but it's pretty decent. And he wants to talk about the Star Wars books. And I'm like, what Star Wars? Oh, he's talking about that tie-in to the Rise of Skywalker. What is he doing?
I'll tell you what I enjoyed this week, Jim. I'm talking about Marvel. It's like a kind of one-off thing. It's the Godzilla Fantastic Four book.
That's what we're going to end up. We're probably going to talk about that. And it's John Romita Jr. art, and you can kind of have fun with that. But,
yeah, it's not amazing. Some of the pages are good. Some of it looks a bit rushed, but
yeah, I'm telling you,
Joseph
Wolf said that he liked it. I gave the Green Arrow a decent score. The problem is, he's right, because I'm reading it to get ready to record. And what I usually do is I'll give myself, sometimes up to half an hour because I'll reread it. I'll check out some things, or if I have to look up. Legit was done that book in 3 minutes. That
really
quick. It's so quick. And
I'm not reading it.
The only Green Arrow action you get is him shooting a bunch of arrows into an electric pole so they could climb up and see a school. I'm like, all right, this is slow pace. Now, he does act like the buffoon, Oliver Queen, millionaire buffoon. That's kind of funny and stuff like that, but it's really slow paced. It's really, you kind of need, but I think that's just how it is. I think that's how the story is going to play out, but it definitely will read better. And as I said, I rarely say it'll read better in trade, because I really don't read trades, but you can tell that I don't think it's weird. You end up where you have this many issues so far, And if you ask me each issue, oh, is it worth I'd say no. But overall, I think it's worth it. It's a weird play. As a whole, it's pretty good. But individually, you don't get much. So it's tough. Yeah. The Hulk deal. Again, that Red Hulk, it's a tie-in to a Nothing event that I don't like, and it's kind of fun. But the regular Hulk book, again, that's another one that's kind of boring me. The Philip Kennedy Johnson book with Charlie, and everything runs through Charlie, and I think that has to do something more. It's just kind of, they just keep like, if they're in Vegas, they need to go back to New York. If they're in New York, they need to go to Los Angeles. If they're in Los Angeles, they have to go to Vancouver. That seems to be what the book just is constantly of. Oh, we're here, but we have to go there. Oh, Charlie needs this. Oh, Charlie, just it's kind of getting to me. And I want to like something at Marvel, but there's not much to like. And also, ASM was garbage. That finale to the deal was complete and utter garbage, and I end up
absolute nonsense.
I think
but according to Nick Lowe in the letters page, it's the best issue
the
ever.
lowdown
again.
Yeah. It's like, what's your favorite issue? It's my favorite issue since the last issue of ASM. That's pretty much him. But yeah, what a jerk. Yeah, and we review that. We have that coming out on the regular Marvel podcast, and I hated it so much that we were actually going to talk about 2 other books, and I told Matt, we're just talking about this, and I'm so angry about it, we're just going to get... And we ended up yelling about it for like 50 minutes because I was so angry about what that book ended... And then even that... You did read the backup, right? That's like, hey, and this is what you're going to get with Joe Kelly coming up. I'm like, that is garbage too. Like, it was really
I thought that
bad.
Was a joke or something. Meant to be, a comedy story. Is that what we're getting?
Yeah, that's what it seems.
Next month.
At one point, you have Spider-Man's like, hey, put down the Hondos. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, and and
just imagine
the deal.
if you got a big name, Jim, to write it. They actually got somebody in,
and Joe
a really
Kelly,
big name.
people seem to think. I actually, for Marvel, I really like Daredevil. I like the Chip Zdarsky.
I've got back into that because I dropped it a while back. But yeah, the last few issues have been
like
really
Captain
good.
America a lot. I'm trying to think of some of the other characters. I don't have as many favorites as I do with DC, only because DC was what I started reading. And then
I heard Ultimate Wolverine's not very good. I've not read it yet.
Yeah, it's pretty much nothing again.
No,
it's just killing.
Oh dear,
just killing and
kill.
Yeah,
no story.
So, Manhunt. That X-Men Manhunt thing it's a debacle. Like this issue was this issue actually felt like it was just like we went back like a year, and it's pretty much the idea of the what's it called, Krakoa stuff. And now it's something about I'm talking about when Chip Zdarsky, the run before Saladin Ahmed was Chip Zdarsky. I started, the funny thing is I started reading the Saladin Ahmed thing, and when people were all up in arms about the first couple issues, I got in arguments. I said, people, you don't get it. This is the 7 deadly sins. It's obvious. People are like, you're full of shit. And then I was right. So then, but I've dropped off that. But yeah, the idea of Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil, I did like it until it started.
That was really good back in the day, yeah.
Stuff. Once he ended up with those other 2 things after what was it? I forget that, whatever that event was, the deal. They end up going in, and then and I actually didn't mind at first Elektra being Daredevil either. I know people got upset, but I thought it made more sense, and then it just stayed, and it's worn out its welcome. But yeah, so that's the deal. But now
Fearmonic shouting out the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Naruto book that's a lot of fun, by the way, folks.
I haven't read it, and Naruto. I haven't really read much.
It's only issue 3 just
the
come
first
out.
Couple trades of Naruto. I have not that I'm not a big fan.
No, I've not read the character before.
Yeah,
it's good crossover though.
The stuff I like, nice. I really, again, if we want to fight about the things of what I don't like in manga, there's a couple but I still like it. But I do like, and with Sonny Waffle Singh when he went to prison with Daredevil, it did kind of, I don't know. I like the concept of it, but it kind of lost its way then as well. But with manga, I really like Chainsaw Man. I really like My Hero. I like a lot of the basic ones, the bigger ones. They're like a Demon Slayer, but I also like Marriage Toxin. There's a couple new ones that are really good as well. I just will mention that Kaiju number 8, not one of my favorites. Like the only one I think that doesn't really like Kaiju number 8. It's not my favorite deal. And
started out pretty good that, but
it just kind of like, I don't know.
It's doing the same thing. It's
always the same thing. It just never really got me, but a lot of people really, really love it. So, and I understand, but yeah, some of the other things. with that. I do like a lot of like newer stuff. I love anything that has school shenanigans. And like a girl that wants to confess to a guy, but then finds out the guy's a werewolf, but then she's also a werewolf hunter. Shit like that is what I like. I end up there. There was a new one. I can't remember the name of it, but you end up two that I really like. I can't even remember. The one is that this girl goes to high school and she decides to be one of those gals. That trope. The Japanese girls or even Korean that go around and they have like that fake tan and all the crazy. You ever see those? It's a little older now for Gray. But I ended up really liking that because she's trying to be a gal and then she likes this guy who's a punk, but he's pretended to be a punk too. Yeah, and Undead Unluck I liked for a while, but then I ended up kind of falling off of that. Dan to Dan I really liked. I liked Ayakeshi Triangle was one of my favorites. But we had manga podcasts for all that, but that seems to be the deal. I have to go and I got to review Wonder Woman now for the podcast with Jared, so I'm going to end up where I'm going to go. That and there's, well, I guess Ashley's got crazy background noise going on at the moment. It might be, is it your wife and her punk band? Is that possible? But we're probably
she's just got a blowpipe out and she's pointing it right at me, Jim. I don't know what to do.
Oh my goodness! But we're gonna get out of here. Thanks everybody for listening. Just a little, chat at the end, but I do have to go and review the classic End of the Sovereign Story with Tom King. I'm not looking forward to that. And actually, with this, I should end up getting a Sus Records song. That should be like one of the, caveats for sticking around, right? I mean, everybody wants that. I got some guff today from some people that they said I had a vulgar mind. Is what they said. I don't know what they mean by that. I certainly don't.
You, the Sus Record chief,
you
CEO.
Always end up, I'm telling you, the idea of me wanting to play a song, but I don't want to play anything too crazy. I don't want to go too nuts. So I got to get these things. So I'm trying to get this darn thing, and it's not loading up right.
Jim, just a shout out quickly. I'm planning to do a late night live comic book chat later on my channel. So if you're looking for a little bit of late comic book talk, folks, check out Wakizashi's Tea House.
Yeah, go and I'll try to put the thing in this.
No, don't worry about it.
Live stream, but it'll be pretty cool. Yeah, I'll probably watch. I'm going to go review that deal, and then I have to figure out. So do we?
Don't forget, you've got 200 podcasts to edit, Jim.
Yeah, that is true. Do we want something that's really bad? I'm looking at all these. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to go well. Anybody like things? What did we play last week? I don't even remember. It was some crazy deal, right? I can't remember.
I don't know. It wasn't the Usagi Yojimbo song, was it?
No, there was like the naughty deal, but which one was it? I can't remember.
I think it was the one that was that had hit the algorithm.
Oh, it was that one. So I can't do that one. So I'll figure out something. So we'll end up where maybe an R&B song. Would you like that? Would you dig that?
Oh, yeah.
I did end up mentioning something that I could put this on. It's not exactly appropriate, but it's a thing that might be, some people might enjoy it, actually. So we'll see what it is. I think I just loaded up the wrong thing. So thanks, everybody, once again.
Do it now.
Check out the deal. The show notes will have links to all the stuff that we do, but also the idea of the Gray stuff, and go check his stuff out. And I do see a lot of people who end up in this. I'm now just talking because I got to load this up, but I do see a lot of people that cross over the deal where they'll show up in your stuff too, which I do like, and vice versa and stuff like that. So I'm getting this ready. This is here. I have final version or best. I don't know which is supposed to be the one. What would you go, final or best? I don't know. And I think Gray just got cut off with that. But with this all, let me get this going here, and now I don't know what's happening. Ray has muted his steel. Maybe he is dead.
Fear Monarch's asking for the Tom King song.
which one's that? I'll tell you. Like, oh god, song to get you. Oh, it was that. Well, you mean that the one with the arrow? Maybe I will play that.
Was it the Black Canary one you did?
Yeah, that's what I think he's saying. We'll play this one first if it does load. It's having some problems, and then we'll play the Tom King one as well. So it'll be a dirty song, and then a legit song written by Tom King that I ended up putting music to. So here we go. Thanks, everybody. And Joseph Wolf is asking, if he's asking how long till the stream, what would it be, like 3 hours or so till your stream?
It'll be around midnight Eastern. I know it's really late, but it's good for the West Coast, but not for the East Coast.
Yeah, so that'll be pretty cool. So everybody, thanks a lot. Thanks, Gray, and we'll talk to you all later.
don't have to be a bird to be heard. You can say I'm unique, that you love how I speak, that I'm all that you seek. But honey, you'll never, never be in my Justice League. And it hit me like an arrow, 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 like a green arrow, 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 arrow. Nobody knows just how you feel. Your head's still filled with all those squeals. Surrounded by friends who don't know your face. Party animals don't know their place. Who else could you possibly be when you kick that baby into the sea? You're Batman as fuck, crashing out of buildings in your bad dump truck. You're Batman as fuck, burning all that money like a stupid schmuck. You're Batman as fuck. And we like you because you're just dumb fun. We Run. Run.